Hello and welcome. Stand Up World, episode 36, The Real Deal. I think I called last week's episode 36 with Stephen Wright, but this is 36. And we got a really great guest. Right, Patrick?
One of the best.
Patrick, the super duper producer, the man of the moment. Joe List is really, I'm a little bit fascinated with him and his pals in the world that they've carved. And I'm kind of trying to follow them a little bit into it. Everybody knows the Joe Rogans and the Burrs and the Mark Marons of this underworld. But the Mark Normans and the Sam Morrills and Joe List, I guess Rich Voss and his wife, Bonnie, and, there's a few others that I think, Andrew Schultz, obviously, and Santino. And I just love Sam Tripoli, these guys, right? Do you know who I'm forgetting a lot of people, I know, but I have been waiting for this new world to fully develop and mature for so long, to screw the gatekeepers and screw the big studios and the corporations. I've just had this theory for so long that every time the corporations and the studios start whining about how bad the business is and how unprofitable it is, I always want to go, because you hire too many executives. You have too many parking structures. Okay? You take too many retreats. You have too many jets. If you streamlined your business, you wouldn't have to keep streamlining our business. It's a shitty business full of a bunch of rich, whiny people that should have been car salesmen. And the internet is kind of finally making a safe world. I give so much up to Louis C.K., all the crap this guy's taken. But when he started putting his own specials up, everyone said, his site now, he's doing this really cool thing. He made this wonderful movie with Joe List called 4th of July with his own money. I don't know if he made money or not, but the new world is coming. And Rogan and Maron and Burr and all these guys on the West Coast, and then Joe List and Mark Maron and Andrew Schultz, they're just, on the entertainment side, are just building a tunnel for us all to follow through. And anyone who doesn't see that this has got to be the way on so many levels. And Joe List, I think, is someone that really personifies it. He's coming out this weekend with maybe his 4th special called Enough for Everyone. The last special one last year's material was great. His specials, one has 6 or 9 million views on it. What is it, Patrick?
I think he's got 9 million views.
Yeah, 9 million views. And he makes these little films. He made this one wonderful little just horror film, just a small little thing. But and much the way I love. Have you ever seen the Mark Norman thing that I love, Norman the Doorman?
I don't think so.
Oh, I love it. It's Norman the Doorman. You've got to check it out. These guys, they don't sit around. They're not sitting around waiting to be discovered. They're making their own path, and I love it. And Joe is right in that era. I really am a fan of this guy. I'm so glad he's here today. Let's bring him on. Joe List! Hey, Joe, how are you, man? Thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Well, I'm a big Joe List fan. I really am. I got to tell you, I'm someone that's really, I'm really interested. I love comedians. I love stand-up. But I'm really into this new world of stand-up, and I've been waiting for so long.
Yeah, it's pretty great. It's a real DIY, and there's less gatekeepers and such. And I just keep shooting things, paying a guy to shoot it and putting it on my YouTube, and it seems to be working out so far.
Well, it's great. It's really great, and I mean, my whole career, I've been really entrepreneurial my whole life, but I've had to be entrepreneurial inside of this kind of giant gatekeeping distribution center,
Right.
and it's really hard. I would make these independent movies and work my butt off on them, and then get either no distribution or a horrible distribution. And not only do I love what the podcast world has done for comedians, for stand-ups, but I love like what you and Louis did with the 4th of July, which I thought was a fantastic movie.
Oh, thank you very much.
I thought
Yeah,
it
I
had so
appreciate
much emotion and so much comedy, and I just thought you all were so good in it. It looks so good. I mean, if anybody has not seen the 4th of July yet, go to louisck.com and watch that movie. It is, I think, in another era, another world, it would have made $30 million at the box office.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I wish I was in that era because it made $0 at the box office, but we had a great time. And no, I'm proud of it. I appreciate you watching it and saying that. It makes me happy when people like it because yeah, we had a hard time with the reviews, but a lot of people went and saw it, and a lot of people were really enthusiastic about it.
Yeah. Yeah. I really liked it. And I also like, you make these little shorts. I remember one time you had this little thing. I don't know when it was. It wasn't maybe a year ago or something. You were just sitting in an alley smoking a cigar, and some guy spooked you out.
Yeah, yeah.
But I liked it because it was so cinematic, and it was so viscerally. It was scary, but you kind of felt, okay, it's Joe List, so I'm not going to be that scared.
Right.
There's got to be something coming. And I loved the way it ended. I just loved the way it ended. It just,
Thank you.
Just saw yesterday, you put out this documentary, which I thought was really smart.
Oh, thanks.
About the documentary about the last special, this year's material.
Yeah.
And you said something really honest and really interesting. And I really believe we're in this era of authenticity. And that works. Authenticity works. And I really noticed that in your work.
Oh, thank you. Well, boy, that's like the nicest compliment I could get. By the way, I love the Comedy Store documentary, and I still have Showtime now because I download, or whatever you call it, bought it, ordered it, whatever, so I could watch.
Oh,
And,
thanks.
I love it, and I just have Showtime just sitting on my TV. I never watch it, but
Get rid
I
of
thought
it.
the documentary, I thought the doc was awesome. But no, thank you. I appreciate that. I mean, that authenticity is what I'm going for, and so for somebody to notice it and appreciate it, it makes me feel good. Thank you.
Well, you don't hold back. You use everything. You use this. These are my weaknesses. These are my strengths. This is what I like. This what I feel like this right now. I feel this more, and I think that works. Even when I was a kid, when I'd see Richard Pryor was so revealing of who he was, and that's who he was.
Yeah, that's how I've always felt. That's always the comedy I enjoy the most. I mean, I enjoy all kinds of comedy, but I always enjoyed the most that people felt like they were just talking as they are. It's just like that guy would sound similar if he was off stage.
Right. And I don't know that we kind of went through this era. I don't know if you remember this. Maybe you weren't around, but like there were a lot of characters, Emo and Judy Tenuta, and which they were all funny, but they felt kind of like comedy. People wanted character. I feel like now we're so far away from that.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's funny because I always felt like I had to be as genuine as possible because it just felt easier to bomb that way. Like if you're bombing, just standing there, you're like, Jesus, they hate me. But it just always felt like so hard to be like just eating it in character. But maybe it's easier, I guess, because it doesn't feel as much you. But I remember when I first started, I was like 18 and I loved Jim Carrey. I thought Jim Carrey was amazing. And I was sort of a jumpy, spazzy guy, but I'm like, if you're just bombing while bouncing around high energy, you just look like a psychopath. So that's kind of,
That's
I
right.
just kind of stand there and be like, oh, here's some thoughts.
Yeah, no, you're right. But the flip side of it is if you're authentic and you're just kind of real, it doesn't have that kind of energy that you can really take a crowd that isn't a great crowd and turn them around sometimes, because you're just hey, I don't got nothing but this. Sorry, And
Yeah.
so you kind of wish I wish I had some cassette tapes to play and dance to music right now, but I don't.
Right. Right. No,
But
it is that weird thing. If they don't like you, you're like, well, you don't like me. And I
That's
don't
right.
have anything else to offer.
That's right.
But, yeah.
Yeah. But I also like something you said in that documentary when you did you film the new documentary at the Cellar?
It was the new specials there. Yeah. The
That's what I meant. I'm
thing,
sorry.
The
The new special.
Yeah. It's at the Village Underground again. It's my third one in a row there. I just keeping it simple. I'm like, it comes time to do it, and I'm like, where should I do it? What should I do? And then I'm like, well, I'll just do it there again. It's easy enough. And I just think the jokes are different, so the background can be similar.
Yeah, I saw you say that. You were talking about the last one. I didn't know if the new one's there, but I think that's really smart. I've directed and produced a lot of specials, and I did my own when I was younger, and I think sometimes, it's great when they look great. Like Tom Segura's new special looks so great,
Yeah.
But the most important thing is it fun? Is the guy funny? Are the jokes funny? And are you comfortable? And I do think that was really smart what you said. Look, this is the place where I created this stuff. These are the rooms I'm playing. It's just the way I want to do it right now, And I thought that was really a smart kind of take on it.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I really like club comedy. It's like, it's not that I've done a few theater. I mean, I did a bunch of theaters opening for Louis and stuff, and I've done a couple on my own, and I like it. It's cool, but I just really like that small, surrounded by small room of the jokes. The laughs are really bouncing, and people are right there. And I like the sound of the drinks clinking and stuff. And that to me is my favorite kind. My favorite special ever is Brian Regan, I Walked on the Moon, which I think is at like the Irvine Improv or something like that. It's just at a club.
Yeah.
I like club specials. I mean, it maybe doesn't work as well as if you're Kevin Hart, and you're at a club. Although I think it would. I just like a special at a club.
I think Kevin Hart would be better in a club. I saw one of the worst specials I've ever saw was Kevin Hart at the O2 Arena in London. I would rather watch a pony die than watch that again. Just have Paula Abdul run around the stage naked. That's what the O2's for.
Yeah, I agree. And it's funny, I got to open for Louis on his big tour in 2016, 17. The LA Forum was the only arena we did that actually felt like a club. It's kind of like one level and it plays small. But for the most part, you do those big rooms and you're like, this is lost. I feel lost up here and they feel lost. I really think stand-up should be kind of that brick wall right on top of you kind of feeling. Yeah.
Listen, I think it's great to do it. And I opened for Sandler and he was playing arenas and that it was fun. It's fun. But in terms of filming a special, you want the audience to feel like I'm there watching the show. And the most intimate way to do it is in kind of an intimate place, look there's a million roads to the center of town with specials. But I think what you said was the best. It's where you're comfortable. It's really where you're comfortable.
Yeah, I agree. I agree, and that's why I just keep going back to the same place. And I might seem like crazy, or I don't know. I'm like, I don't know if I'll do a fourth there, but it felt like, okay, I'll do like a little trilogy of specials here. But as soon as I finished shooting this most recent one, I was like maybe I will do a fourth one here. It's just I just like it. I like taking a cab home and just being like, I'm back home and it's done.
That's right. That's great. But you grew up in Boston, right?
Yeah, I started in Boston. I was there for about 7 years. I grew up south of Boston, but I started in Boston.
And so, like, would you say right now, like, the Cellar's your home club?
Yeah, the Cellar and Stand. I'm at the Stand a lot too. I never want to sell them. I actually do a lot of spots at the Stand, and I just love that club. But yeah, I go back and forth and do both, and those are definitely my two home clubs, and they're both. It's just so nice to be at a club for so long. You know the staff, you know the manager, you know the booker, and it just feels like home. Both of those places.
See, neither of those clubs were really there when I was first doing stand-up. The first time I went to the Cellar, I went with Stan Soder. I was directing an episode of Billions, and we just went in one night when we were shooting. I think that was the first time I went there, and then I've gone a bunch of times since then, and I've never been to the Stand. The clubs that when I was there was the Improv, of course, and Catch, and Comic Strip. Those, and then there was a place up the Upper West Side. I think it was called like the Upper West Side Comedy Club or something.
Oh wow, the Stand Up New York's been there since '86. I don't know what else used to be there, but yeah, the Improv and Catch I missed. The Improv is like a Mexican restaurant now. It has a little plaque there dedicated to the Improv, which is nice.
Oh really? Yeah, in Hell's Kitchen, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I don't know. To me, I just feel like the club tips, that stuff, the live stuff's always going to be the same. The most exciting stuff to me is what is going on under the ground, on the internet. That, and I will tell you, especially in an era of the strike, the people that are running show business, that's what they're most afraid of. They're most afraid of the day when we figure out a way to really monetize these specials and monetize 4th of July, or make movies that really make sense and can sell them to the whole world without them. You feel that? Is that what you're going for? What you're going for? Like, you want to make more movies and things like that?
Yeah, definitely. And I always wanted to make movies and still want to. And I'm actually making a documentary myself now, a comedy documentary about my friend Tom Dustin, who I don't know if you've ever run into him.
What's his
name? I don't
name?
think he's ever made it out to LA. His name's Tom Dustin. But yeah, we shot this guy for like 4 days, Tom, and I brought down 2 cameramen, and we just shot everything all day, him telling stories, joking around, talking about his past and coming up, and sort of and drinking and all these things. And it's just I was very much inspired by Italian American by Martin Scorsese, if you know that movie, and
sure,
American Boy. It was just kind of like, let's just shoot this guy telling stories, like kind of in the wild, living his life. And it's taken on kind of a different feeling because he talks so much about our relationship, and so it kind of became this thing of these 2 guys that started together, and I got sober and moved to New York, and he kind of kept and went on the road a bit, and now he's in Key West. And so there's a bunch of elements, and I'm hoping it'll kind of be like a little bit of comedian cult classic kind of thing, like where comedians are really into it and comedy fans. But I was trying to say was just kind of like, I don't have to, I could try to sell it or get it in some festivals, but it's one of those, if everybody turns it down, you still go, well, I have my YouTube channel and I can have friends in it, and hopefully people will see it that way, kind of organic.
Well, your specials, one of your specials has like 9 million views, right? So, I mean,
yeah, the most recent one has 2 million.
So I was going to say, you guys have guys like you and Mark Norman and Sam Morril, and you guys seem like you have like half a dozen podcasts each. It seems like a lot of. Tell me about that.
It's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot of podcasts. I started Tuesdays with Stories, where I'm at the studio now with Mark Norman. Yeah, almost 10 years ago, coming up on 10 years, which is crazy to think about. And at that time, it felt like we were late to the podcast game, but maybe we were early. So we've always just been doing it, and for us, that's fun. It's now with us both being on the road, it's the best way to see each other and hang out. So, but then during pandemic, there was nothing to do. We were kind of sitting around, so I started a movie review podcast with my friend Ronan Hirschberg, who's a great comic, and then I started this other podcast called Mindful Metal Jacket, which was sort of a mental health interview podcast, and then we started to come back to light with all this shows coming back, everything coming back after COVID. And it became too much. So I put Mindful Metal Jacket on hiatus, and then I brought that back and put the movie podcast on hiatus. The movie podcast was more because I started making movies and didn't want to be on the record shitting on movies.
Right. That's right.
Which is awkward. So yeah, I got a few, and then you're doing guests on all these podcasts. It's crazy when I started in 2000, so that's 23 years ago. And I used to always say for years, I'm like, if you put in an hour a day in stand-up, you're working harder than most comedians. But now it's like, if you don't work 8 hours a day, you're not working enough. Because with the clips and the podcasts and all the shit, it's a totally different gig than when I started. Certainly when you started also.
Absolutely. I say that all the time. I say these guys work so much harder than we did. And by the way, when I say that, then I realize, wait a minute, now I'm doing stand-up again. So I'm saying we work so much harder than they did.
Right.
It's so much work. I tell my wife, because I have this stand-up world site, and it's a stand-up podcast. And every week I'm just chasing it. Like, it's like, oh my God, it's never done. And making clips of my stand-up and building. And yet I love it. And sometimes I'll go to lunch with some of the comics my age and they go, what are you doing? Why are you starting stand up now? It's no one gives a fuck. Who think anyone cares about you? I'm like, well, I like it. And I'm playing their game. I like playing in their league, in their world,
Right. Yeah, it's hard. I mean, there's definitely times where I'm like, God, I can't believe I'm podcasting again. And I think this all the time. Like, comedians, we don't have that much to say. And sometimes people will comment and be like, you told that story on this. And I'm like, I know, I got to fill an hour every week. It's like,
that's right. By the way, that's
difficult.
one of the things that I really think why Rogan's so great, because Rogan has so much to say and so much that he's interested in, and so many things. I am not that interested in things. Honestly, I just, that guy has, there's a shelf behind him of shit that he knows about. And I'm going, really? You care about plucking chicken feathers and the history of the Fabergé egg and the DNA of dinosaurs? Really? In that detail?
No, it's impressive. I mean, like, I've done an interview podcast where like 20 minutes in, I'm like, all right, well, that does it.
That's right. That's right.
He's doing 3-hour shows multiple times a week.
Yeah, that's right. And that's, people like watching that,
Yeah.
No,
people love podcasts, and I'm always blown away that it shocked me. First of all, every instinct I've had in my career has been incorrect. But I remember when people started filming podcasts, I remember going, we're not doing cameras. It's a radio show. You don't film a podcast like on the record. And now it's like, that's how everybody watches. Like, the idea to me of going home and watching two men talk to each other on camera is crazy, but people love it. I mean, like hundreds of thousands of views. That's what people do. They go home and they watch comedians talk to each other.
And do you find the podcasts help you sell tickets to your live shows, or the specials help more?
It's hard to say. I think both have helped. I mean, I definitely got a big bump after the last two specials have both given me a big bump. But then also so many people that come go, hey, we love Tuesdays with Stories, man. Where's Mark? Oh, like, they do a lot of that. So it's a bit of both. And I think that's the great thing about a podcast is it puts you in the ears of fans every week. Whereas through most of 80s and 90s and early first decade of the 2000s, it's like when you put out a special or an album, they hear you. And other than that, it's just the once every 18 months that you come to town. So it keeps you fresh in their minds. They're hearing you every week. And I think it's a huge help. Podcast definitely if they don't bring in fans, they definitely sustain the fans, I think.
Right. Because I don't know. I mean, I like the podcast. I don't listen to a lot of them, to be honest. I like specials. I really enjoy watching a good comedian special. And I really like, I really appreciate a well done set, you know, and I think that to me, it's hard now because I'm doing it again, you know, but I think that if I wasn't doing it and someone was really regularly coming up with a new special and they came to town, I'd go see them. I'd go,
Yeah.
you know, I don't know if, you know, like you say, if he and another man were talking a lot, you go, okay, I got to go see him live because he talks good with his friends.
Right.
You know, but I do think the specials are like albums, and it's like when you want to go see a band. I mean, I don't know. Are you doing any when you go? If I go see you live, not that I'm gonna, Joe, because if I go see you, I'm gonna come in the back door. I'm gonna knock and say, "Hey, Mike's here."
Yeah, yeah.
I'm just too full of myself to actually go buy a ticket.
Of course.
Even though, but are you going to do the material from the specials, or do you have to do you wait to go out until you have all new material?
So I shot the special back in February, I think, and now I'm releasing it finally in late August or mid-August. But and so it's been kind of trying to get enough stuff that covers me when you go see me live. But the special comes out this weekend, and then I'm in Dallas next weekend. So there's probably about like 5 to 10 minutes that's on the special that I'll do, but it's mostly new, and I'll try to stretch it a little bit too, and go, hey, what are you guys doing? You know, you kind of try to come up with anything to fill that space, because I hate the feeling of telling a joke that people have heard before, because it feels like it reveals the magic trick a little bit. But there's only, you know, I got to fill the time somehow. So I'll usually address like, hey, you might hear a couple jokes that are on the special, but it'll be mostly new. But anyways, short answer is it's mostly new.
Now
Yeah,
that you
and
say that, actually-
I think people, you see, I've had this argument with so many comedians, and you know that, I don't know if you know this, but one of the first cable specials the guys that I knew did was Leno had a Showtime special. I think it was called American Comedian. And he put it out and he bought it back from them right away and destroyed it. He claims he destroyed it, but it's never been anywhere because he didn't want to get rid of that material.
Right.
And I think people like to see the material live.
Yeah, it's like, oh, Brian Regan, you go see Regan, who I referenced earlier. I just think is one of the greats ever. He'll do his new jokes and then take requests, and people yell out bits, and he just does the bits, and he always laughs because he's like, well, there's supposed to be a surprise element, but here you go, here's the bit. So people do like to hear, because I think people like to bring friends and go do the joke, because I hear it all the time. People go, oh, we wanted to hear the dentist joke or the whatever joke. But to me, it's just, I just get tired of telling the same jokes. That's why I'm like, people ask me about writing new material and say I'm prolific, which I'm touched by, appreciate, but I'm like, no, I'm just sick of my act after 6 weeks.
Yeah. That's what's, I've only been back doing it a year now, and I get so sick of it so fast. But I can see already, you know, just doing it a year, I just see people go, I've heard this is good, you know. And
right,
people they don't go, oh fuck, I heard this. They like it, you know. And I think comedians are too sensitive to that. You know, they forget that how much you want to hear songs you like, or if you see movies a second time, you love watching the scene again. There's something about seeing something, you know, that's familiar and watching it played out again, you know. And And I also think, for me at least, and I'm sure I never do it exactly the same way.
Yeah, that's the nice thing, is that there's a different element with different crowd, different kind of delivery. And it's like collecting bootlegs of your favorite band. You're like, this is the same song, but it's different in this version.
That's right. And when, before I let you go, like when you have a special coming out like this, are you gonna go on a lot of podcasts to promote it, or you don't go above ground anymore these days, like on talk shows or radio, or Do you do that?
Well, I mean, I'd like to do like a Tonight Show, but now everything's on strike, and I don't mean this like in a bad way, but like now, like Chris DiStefano's podcast gets 10 times the amount of views as the Tonight Show or whoever's like a lot of podcasts are much bigger, you know. So I'm doing a bunch of podcasts. I think I'm going to do Shane Gillis's. I did Santino's and Stavros Halkias and Sam and Mark have a podcast, and so I'm doing a bunch of those. I just did Sal Volcano's podcast today, so I'm doing a bunch of those, and I think I'm going to go do Your Mom's House in September, which is a big one, Segura. So yeah,
But this one is the one that's going to throw it over. This one here, you know,
I hope,
that, right? You know that those.
I hope.
No, but I think that's the way. I mean, you know, but that's been for a while. I remember when we did Paper Tiger, Bill Burr's thing, and I was like, okay, you're going to go promote this thing now, and no, he goes, oh, I'm going to go on Rogan and Santino and all those. He didn't even bother with the Tonight Show. I thought, okay, the world's changed.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. I remember, yeah, a few years ago, maybe it was 5 or 10 years ago. I think it was like I was hanging with Ari Shafir, who's a buddy of mine. He's friends with Rogan, and he was talking about how, you know, he's known Rogan forever, and he's like, oh my God, Mel Gibson is doing Rogan's podcast. That's crazy. And then we realized, you're like, oh no, that's just the biggest show.
That's right.
Because to us, it's like, oh, he's there. Mel Gibson's on a comedian's podcast, but you're like, oh no, he's on the biggest platform there is.
That's right. And Stephen Wright, who's an old buddy of mine, had a book out this year, and he had a big publisher, and they told him, just go on podcasts, talk shows. People that are watching that aren't buying books anyway. Go on podcasts. You talk longer about the book, and those people are going to buy books.
Right.
And he just went on every podcast and sold his book.
Yeah, it's a new world. It's funny because change always frightens me, but it sometimes works out in your favor.
It does, and that's what I meant. You think it frightens you, it really frightens the gatekeepers.
Right.
I know they're really afraid of, you know, how many views your last 2 specials have gotten. That's a scary. Those are scary numbers. Those are really scary numbers, you know, and those numbers are going to grow. They're not going to get smaller, you know?
Right.
So it's really, such an interesting world. And I really love what you're doing, Joe. And I really see you in that group of guys that really started this road and really got it together. You and Ari and Mark and Sam and Andrew Schultz and of course Rogan and Burr, and but you guys really, my hat's off to you.
Oh, thank you very much. That means a lot. Boy, this is the best podcast I've ever done. I feel like $1 million here.
Well, I mean it. I'm sincere. I really wanted to have you on, you know. And
I appreciate that.
And I really wish you well on your new special. I'm gonna do a whole thing on my blog, and it's listen, if anyone listening, watch his special. And then also the other thing is, I loved what Ari did. I loved Ari. It took a real Jew to say, pass the hat. To me, that's what I think the comedians have to do. They have to say to their fans, I worked hard on this thing. Go to my Venmo, go to my PayPal, but support Joe. Like we always say on stage, take care of the staff, the wait staff, but watch Joe's special and send him some dough.
Yeah, you know, please
make this a real way to make a living. And you can, there's what do they call it, a special love button or something on YouTube? Or
yeah, I don't even know, but it's on there. People know how to do it.
It's there, and you know, find a way to send Joe something for if you enjoy the special, which I know you will. But also watch 4th of July on louisck.com. It's a great movie.
Thank you very much. Thanks for saying that. I appreciate it.
I'll see you soon. Okay. I hope.
Okay. Thanks so much, Mike. Appreciate it.
Thanks for doing this.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. That's the episode. It's actually episode 36, even though, like a moron that I called last week's episode 36. And I appreciate Joe List. We had some technical difficulties, but I got a lot of respect for that guy, and I really do hope you go and check out his special and his movie. And more important than them, support me. Watch this on Apple, Spotify, Google, Stand Up World. But rate and comment on Apple. That would be really great if you do that. And this Wednesday night, if you happen to be in Santa Monica Comedy Company at La Puglia Restaurant, the best Italian restaurant in Santa Monica. We have a great show. Come on out and support us and help us start a new comedy venture in Santa Monica. And if you're not in Santa Monica, just keep listening and hopefully we'll come out to you soon. That's it. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Have a great week.